Welcome to Save the Nation Today. I'm Phil Bell, Director of External Relations here at FreedomWorks, and we are proud to have with us Christian Watson, spokesperson for Color Us United, as well as the host of Pensive Politics. Christian, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's Black History Month. We hear a lot about that. So tell me, what is your political philosophy and what brought you to Pensive Politics?
Well, my political philosophy, I'm going to use a term that some folks may not be necessarily aware of, but it's an important term nonetheless. As far as it relates to the relationship between government and governance and the people that the government governs, I'm a minarchist, meaning that I believe that the government does not really have the moral authority to be involved in most of the activities it's involved in right now. We have many federal, departments, and I've been in D.C., I've been walking down the mall and seeing all these federal buildings, the Federal Reserve, I've been seeing Commerce, I've been seeing ICE. We have so many departments which are overextensions of government authority and ultimately intrusions into private life that I think citizens could most certainly handle better. And so I think minarchy says that government only has a few core functions. Number one, it has the function to ensure the enforcement of contracts. Number two, it has the function to ensure that there is a military defense. And that's probably about, and torts as well, which is kind of goes into contracts. Everything else should be left to private individuals. I came to this philosophy, this has been a long road, but the Ron Paul revolution in 2011, when I was a little boy, really inspired something within me. And it encouraged me to read more, encouraged me as I grew older to get into eventually philosophy, because a lot of the discourse that I was seeing on cable TV, I used to watch Bill O'Reilly all the time, all these people, was not getting to the depths of the issues, in my opinion. Right. They were all sticking to the surface, which is why I embraced philosophy and eventually created Pensive Politics, which also lives on my YouTube channel called Christian Watson, to provide a counterbalance to the kind of discourse we're having right now, to provide a counterbalance to the bomb throwers and the sycophants who do not really want to explore these issues on a foundational level. And by doing so, I think I've gained a more profound respect for the American experiment over the years. And
now to dive a little bit more deeply into minarchism, we're living in a time right now where a lot of people are very, very focused on what the government is doing. A lot of them have even welcomed, for example, with COVID, the government's response. What do you say to them to, get your point across and kind of pass the defenses they have where they say, well, I need government to help me? Because your vision sounds very much like what we believe in FreedomWorks, which is the freedom part of FreedomWorks.
Well, with COVID, it's interesting because a lot of people have put their trust in the medical authorities and in government, much to their detriment, in my opinion. Not saying that medical authorities are inherently untrustable, because I don't think that's true. And there has been a sort of conspiratorial push from certain sectors of the political spectrum, which I think is somewhat dangerous. But the medical authorities have run a lot of Americans through the ringer, right? So we had the Fauci situation about the masks. Then we had the guidance about who needs to have the COVID shot, which then changed almost overnight. And of course, this wouldn't be a problem because, look, it's a novel virus. This is a novel virus. This wouldn't be a problem if the policies that were built upon that advice also didn't change and weren't so overbearing. So I would just say, when the government does something, it tends to have a certain kind of permanence to it. And that permanence can be a good or bad thing. I think throughout COVID, we've seen immense economic turmoil from the shutdown of economies. We've seen people getting arrested simply for not having a mask on. We've seen a lot of different things happen, which has caused, we've seen, the sort of disregarding of the lives of cancer patients or nursing home residents to fulfill a political agenda. And in the case of Andrew Cuomo, who was kind of rebuked by a few judges in his state for not designating certain areas with the correct level of COVID severity. Right. I mean, we've seen so many missteps from the government that if people are not mistrusting at this point, you just have to really level with them and ask them, okay, obviously something deeper is going on. You've been taught something deeper, or you've absorbed something deeper. The terms in which you regard the government are very profound in your psyche. Why do you believe this? And that's the question that we ask over at Pensive Politics. Why do you believe what you believe? Challenge your foundations, critically analyze them, then go about seeing if they're truth. As Emerson said, you have to test goodness to see if it be goodness. That's how any political philosophy can be advanced. But I think that it's how the true one, minarchism, can also be advanced.
And now, in the last 30 seconds we have here, I wanted to ask you, since you talked about a lot of this philosophy, What are your thoughts on BLM, Black Lives Matter? Because it's Black History Month and everybody wants to know.
Well, I think the organization is a politically oriented organization which has illicitly claimed representation for Black folks in general, which is not how the real world works. Black folks are individual people with minds and mindsets and different religions and different values, and no organization can claim stake to all of them. So that's number one. I think number two, the term should go without saying, but I don't like how the term segregates the value of human life to skin color. I think any kind of really, and all lives matter, I mean, I think that's probably the best way, but it turns off so many people because they see it as ignoring the supposed plight of Black people. So really, I'm not really a fan of the phrase or the organization. I think that human values should be rooted in individuality, and that's how we can go about addressing the racial divide in America.
Well, let's hope that is how we address the racial divide, with individuality and minarchism.
Yeah.
Christian, it's a pleasure to have you.
You too, man. Thank you.